Welcome back to the show, everybody. Check out this headline today. Are we seeing the cracks of the U.S. dollar's Triffin dilemma? Somebody roll that beautiful intro and we'll find out.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at Dig Perspectives at the top of the screen and everything that we're talking about here. And follow us on TikTok at Digital Perspectives No Spaces. And that is some exclusive content. Make sure you tune in there. It's $926 billion market cap for crypto. We're off by 2.4% right now. It's July 12, 2022. Good afternoon, everybody. Bitcoin now 19,900 plus. Ethereum just over $1,000. We see right now XRP is at 31 cents. Let's take a look at the range of price very quickly. We have a lot to go over today, ranging between 31 and 33 cents. We're off by 3% in the last 24 hours. Take a look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Don't let them fool you. I showed this morning, but you need to see this because this is big news. And don't think that it can just be mutually exclusive to some other part of the world. Remember, we have been threatened by Russia to receive cyber attacks to our banking system. And if you look right here, you will see evidence of it going on in China. This is not cyber attacks, however. What you're witnessing here, let me mute this because you get an idea of what's going on here. People's accounts have been frozen, and it's because of problems with liquidity. So whether it's a liquidity issue, a cyber attack issue, or some kind of other issue, this is why. Not to be an alarmist, you guys know I'm a huge fan of Glint, and I am today topping off my card as I talk about all the time. Today's my day to do it, and it will get done today, and I love doing it. I love working with them, and I love being a customer even more. One of the things to remember about this is there's no minimums against how much gold you can buy. You load your card up with cash, and you can buy as much or as little gold as you want. But here's the thing to really remember. In a time when we are seeing bank runs, whether it's in Sri Lanka or whether it's here in China or some other place in the world, and I hope it never meets where you are, it's important to understand that GlintPay will work for you if there is a situation like that in your part of the world, because GlintPay doesn't work connected to the bank system. It is a gold-based alternative to banking, and it is your physically allocated gold that will spend where you use it. Keep that in mind. Link underneath the video. Well, look at this. You hate to see it. Hashtag sarcasm. Jurors were told, let me get to this first really quickly here. This is a just in here. We know that JPM's been called to carpet for manipulating the gold and silver markets and the U.S. Treasury bond market too, by the way. And they've been ripping off those markets for years. 3 former JPM employees are in the firing line, including veteran head of precious metals Michael Nowak, gold trader Greg Smith, and Jeffrey Rufo, an executive director who specialized in hedge fund sales. They're all charged with racketeering conspiracy as well as conspiring to commit price manipulation, wire fraud, commodities fraud, and spoofing from 2008 to 2016. First of all, that Rico Act, that's what they use with the mafia. I mean, that's it. No matter who you talk to, they got a right to investigate. Somebody texted you while you're under investigation, they could look under anything those people talk about and anything those people talked about too. Keep that in mind. I say here, remember when Jamie Dimon told us he'd fire anyone for dabbling in crypto because it was a scam used by crooks and thieves for illicit activities? I think we just found out how he knew that, because it takes one to know one. As they say in the interrogation room, let the squealing begin. These guys like to play golf and things like that. You don't get to do that in jail. Pretty sure somebody's going to start spilling the beans here. Patrick Hansen's been keeping us up to date with what's going on with European Union regulations when it comes to crypto and stable coins. Here are some thoughts to be aware of here. The proof of work mining ban didn't get put into the bill for the recent round of regulations that went through. But he says here, so while a hands-off approach by public authorities is possible, it is highly unlikely. And policy action by authorities, disclosure requirements, carbon tax, and crypto transactions on holdings, or outright bans on mining is probable. You know, I have been saying this for a long time about Bitcoin, is that, you know, people say you can't stop it, you can't stop it. You know, you're right. You cannot stop the technology. But I have said for damn near the start of this channel, you could tax it out of existence if you wanted to. And I have said to watch out for a carbon tax on any kind of proof of work mining like for Bitcoin, because the world is clearly moving to a green agenda. And when you have something that uses as much energy as Bitcoin and proof of work does, I'd watch out. You're still in the crosshairs is basically what Patrick Hansen's saying here. He goes on to talk about DeFi products and protocols as well, claim to have a governance structure. There's still very, very serious questions about that. He uses Uniswap as an example. He goes on to say here, and I think I still have it highlighted here, but I want to talk about the stablecoin issue he brings up. There's so many stablecoins, they have multiplied in recent years, and they can use it as a parking space for their investments when they're in between volatile points of the market. And then he says here, it is not clear when he talks about private stablecoins argued to be technology superior. Well, that's certainly in question because of the U.S. Terra collapse and the Tether depegging, and the most recent information that we covered here on this channel, the CTO from Tether admitting no commercial paper backing it, no treasuries backing it, and there's no outside firm monitoring the reserves, and it's not technically pegged to the dollar, it's pegged to their portfolio. So it is a real accident waiting to happen here, and I do think that something will happen with Tether, and when it does, I think we're going to see even more downward spiral in the crypto space for price action until we get stablecoin legislation. I think it's going to become the poster child for that example. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened. If I'm wrong, I'll make the video. However, given the rapid growth of stablecoin market, stablecoin needs to be brought into regulatory parameter with urgency. It's the same thing that's being said here. Critical was the word used by Senator Gillibrand at the conference at Consensus this year. A good example, EU's MiCA regulation, which needs to be implemented urgently. So we're going to keep an eye on that as it comes, ladies and gentlemen, but all of that's building us to something. But very quickly, I do want to update you on the recent, granted and denied motions. Very quickly, nobody breaks it down better than Jeremy Hogan, basically saying that we get the public gets to see the expert witness reports, except for small parts of it that somehow was directly related to some harassment that was suggested by the SEC. I hope that no one in the XRP investment space is reaching out to any of these experts. It is harmful for us. Now, this is a clip that was sent to me by a source, and it made me question, is this still possible? And I want you to just watch part of this because actually, I'm going to give you the gist of it, the overview of this. But I'm not going to play the whole clip. You want to see it, you can go to Twitter. Because basically, it's suggested from a year ago, a video that Jeremy Hogan had done using the Kick Interactive case as an example of what could take place, that a ruling was made that it would change how investors could get it, and you would need to be accredited investors only to be able to get the token after that judgment was made in summary judgment. Now, my question was, I wonder if that's still a viable outcome. I was reminded, and this is why I post these things sometimes, by some of the great people in this space who aren't just smartasses, who actually said that they had found that the temporary interim SEC chair, shout out to G-Man Dallas for this one, before Gary Gensler removed the Kick Form D resolution on her own. Why? We don't know. So now apparently it is not possible for Ripple to use that as a potential way for a decision. What I'm curious of, Has that changed since the interim SEC chair, Lee, was in place versus Gary Gensler being the chair now? That's the question. Could we still see a decision for accredited investors only? And what would it mean for the XRP holders who are not accredited after such a decision? Would they be allowed to hold it and be grandfathered in? I would think that that would be the best way forward if we get such a decision, if it's still possible. I'm hoping for other people to give us a clear answer on that. Now, let's shift gears and go into this, because just recently we found out, and I reported yesterday, that the Japanese yen is at a 20-year low to the US dollar. The US dollar has been on a tear for strength, and it has been really, really hard charging. The euro has finally come down to a dollar parity, which is the first time in 20 years as well. Another strong sign of how the US dollar is really screaming and running away. Now, this is causing impacts on the rest of the world and their economies and dollars. Now, yesterday, to that point, is an article here that was really commented on by Walter Bloomberg right there. Yellen says yen's depreciation says intervention only warranted in rare cases when it comes to the FX market. Well, then that reminded me of where we are in this world with China's bank runs, Sri Lanka collapsing, right? Understanding what's happening to the dollar or the yen in Japan. Then it reminded me of this from a couple years ago, which is Barry Eichengreen, who was on Podstars. I think it's Podstars is the name of the podcast that David Schwartz was doing for Ripple. And remember, he was on there, and in this IMF conference, which is not the podcast, he talks very much about the problem of the US dollar being the global reserve currency for the world, and it running up against the Triffin dilemma, which is if the United States stopped running a balance of payments deficits, the international community would lose its largest source of additions to reserves. The resulting shortage of liquidity could pull the world economy into a contractionary spiral leading to instability. That's what the Triffin dilemma is. When you have a national currency that is also serving as the global reserve currency, it is very difficult to make global policy decisions that don't harm the national currency impact and vice versa. But listen to what Barry Eichengreen said in this IMF webinar about it.
But the conclusion, to my mind, is depressing because it implies that monetary policy is less effective than we have traditionally thought. In a world where sterilized intervention doesn't do much, monetary policy and exchange rate movements go together. When you're at the zero lower bound, monetary policy works even more heavily by moving the exchange rate because it can't move the interest rate. And if it really is the case that you get less stimulus to exports and less oomph from monetary policy generally, I think it's incumbent on all of us to think about what to do instead. So is this project an argument for fiscal policy? That's depressing because fiscal policy is heavily politicized. Fiscal policy works with even longer lags typically than monetary policy. What do we need to do in terms of reforming our fiscal institutions if we're going to have to rely on them more heavily? And the second part of the question would be, what do we have to do to get out of this position of dollar dominance? Because it has the undesirable effect of weakening monetary policy.
What do we have to do to get out of this position of dollar dominance?
And it will run up sooner or later against the 21st century Triffin dilemma problem.
How about that? That's the IMF. It's not a YouTuber, not a podcaster. It's very real. And I feel like we're watching these bank runs as a liquidity issue. And whether it's specific or exclusive to the economy inside of the country or not, these central banks are all connected. We know that the United States has printed more money in the last 2 years than they have probably in the history of the country. It's crazy. The numbers are incredible. So when you look at that fact alone, to me, you know, I've even argued on this channel that all the money printing that has gone on has not just been for the pandemic, but it's also been to price in the second bankruptcy and reset of this country as we move to a new digital system, for which, and I can't play this clip because there's copywritten music behind it, we're in the middle of sort of rebuilding the financial system, says David Schwartz. Careful, David. You know, the cancel culture out here doesn't like you talking about such big ideas when the XRP token's only 30 some cents. But is it okay for David to talk about it? Is that okay? David can talk about the fact that they're actually rebuilding the entire financial system and you're just too damn weak to understand it because you can't stop looking at price? Maybe that's the real answer. Just building the refinancial system. No big deal. Rosie Rios, 43rd treasurer, right? On the Ripple board. I'm sure it's nothing. Triffin dilemma, IMF. The paper that was written by the former CFTC chair, Chris Giancarlo. I'm not going to play this clip. I'm showing it basically for two reasons here, because I want to show you, and if I could just get here so you can see Chris. There's Chris right there. Shout out to Chris. He wrote a paper at Wilkie Barr after he was the CFTC chairman. He is now the former and was during the time of that legal analysis that was performed. I want to clarify that against the Howey test, XRP was clearing away a currency, not a security. Now, I have made it very clear that I believe that it comes down to the Reeves test. This is Matthew Solomon on stage discussing exactly that about the BlockFi case and about how the Reeves test was so important. I'm not going to play it for you. I'm just highlighting these things as we move through. The Reeves test is important because it's not about, well, it can be about something being a security, but it's more important to know when something is a note, whether it is money. And if it is money, is it a bond like money or is it currency like money? That's the question, I believe, and where we are in this moment. And while all of that is happening, France has launched a second test phase of its central bank digital currency, for which I just reported yesterday from the BIS that the Bank of France and many other CBDCs are in the process of doing exactly that. Setting up the new financial system for which CBDCs will run. That is the key, because the on and off ramps are going to be, like it or lump it, central bank digital currencies and stable coins that have been regulated and licensed and are really held to a compliant level. It will not be the USD tethers of the world in their current form. That much I can guarantee you. And so can the French central bank head, who says here, the European Central Bank could cap the amount of planned digital euros. In other words, says Gold Telegraph, central banks want to control the plumbing of the entire cryptocurrency market. Yes, the answer is yes. Does the libertarian in me like it? No. But is it real? Yes. And that is the way it's going to go, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you right now, you know, Brad Garlinghouse has said it. Bernard Bernanke said it at one of the early swell events. Governments will roll out the tanks before they let any cryptocurrency or blockchain take over their power, control, and relevance. Now, we don't have to like it, but we better damn sure know it. Just my digital perspectives, not financial advice. I'll catch all of you on the next one.